In this video today, we're going to be doing a servo upgrade to this Danchee RidgeRock using these Zoskay 20kg servos, all to give this truck a little bit better performance. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Troy and this is Roadside RC. What you'll tend to find is me bashing and crawling and drifting and racing, plus doing product review videos and how-tos. And on the workbench is the Danchee RidgeRock, which is one of the most budget-oriented, easiest ways to get into RC crawling, with some pretty good performance actually. And what we've been doing to this truck is slowly going through it, giving it a few modifications to make it even better. We've clearly done tires and wheels, and we've soldered on the ability to run a 3S lipo in it. So far, those two things have made a big difference. But one of the things that happens is this has a Hexfly 6kg servo in it, and 6 kgs in the crawling world is like zero. Like, it might as well almost not even have a servo in it. And so even though these aren't a very strong servo, stepping up to these Zoskay 20kg servos should make a huge difference in how this vehicle steers. The other thing that's going to happen with it is we're going to be getting rid of the servo saver that's on here and be going to a fixed servo linkage here, and that'll give us a more direct steering feel, because right now you can actually flex that servo saver quite easily, and that really screws up your driving when you're out on the trails. So we are going to unhook both of these standard servos, get these Zoskay servos in their place, and see just how much better it really is. The first step here is to take off these 4 mounting screws, plus the one center screw here that holds this servo saver and lever arm on. We're going to take those 5 screws out to free the servo from the axle. With the servo free, we now need to follow its wires up this control arm and into the speed control and receiver in one unit. So we're going to have to snip these zip ties to free that wire up. But the bigger thing that we have to do is those wires go into that receiver unit way in there, that maybe you can get your fingers in and maybe you can unhook them and everything without any issue. What I'm going to do is take both of these 2 screws out for these lower control arms, and then that is going to allow me to pivot this whole center skid plate down and have easier access to those connections in there. With these links off, like I said, this center skid plate can just actually pivot then, and I can chase this wire from this front servo over to where they plug in right here into the receiver and ESC combo. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that out, paying attention to what orientation the plug is there, because I'm going to have to repeat that with the new servo going in. Fortunately, the new servo's wiring is roughly the same length as the old, and so I can easily snake it in. Again, I paid attention to the wiring, so the new servo is going to get plugged in here. And then we're going to roll this car back over and get the servo mounted up. Now again, I had to pay attention that it was actually in this orientation. You can always flip these and get them wrong, and then your link here will be set at the wrong length. And so you will want this with the servo spline to the right. All right, I'm going to get this screwed in, some of the wires cleaned up here, and then we're going to have to swap over this servo horn. One tip I actually heard from a viewer is that instead of keeping the wires on the lower control arm, actually tie them to the upper control arm. That keeps them more out of danger from the tires and rocks. So I thought that was a good tip, and I figured this is a great opportunity to go ahead and take that. Now for this, all we need to do is unscrew this ball nut right here. And so we're going to take a small wrench, unscrew that, and then hopefully that'll actually screw directly into our servo horn here, and we'll be in good shape. As I prep to swap over this, I'm going to make sure that I'm using the hole closest to the length of the stock servo saver here. And that's because there's not on the controller any ability to set endpoints. And so I don't want to overextend the servo or bind the servo by the fact that it'll throw more at a smaller amount and have it trying to push even further and then burn up the servo. I don't want to do that. And so I'm going to actually choose this innermost hole. It's going to give me just a little bit more throw than stock, but it'll be pretty close. So we're going to screw that ball stud into that one. Anytime you're installing a new servo like this, before you put the servo horn on, turn the controller on, turn the vehicle on. Let's make sure that it actually steers. And then you leave everything on and centered before you put the servo horn on. So the wheel's centered on the trim there, because what you want is you don't want to accidentally have the servo be turned, not centered itself when you put everything on, and then your steering will be all wonky. So you got to have it powered on while you're doing all this. And oh, this is great news. Look at this. Nice and fast, strong steering, and the best news of all is we're not trying to burn out the servo. It goes just a very small amount past the end of the steering, so that is awesome. We are in great shape. With this front all buttoned up, we're now going to flop around to the rear of the truck and do the whole thing all over again. Should be the exact same process, exact same everything. So I will just skip past this and show you when we're done. It is all done. It's all complete, both front and rear servos. And look at those. They work great. Now we will have to still work with trimming out the front and rear, because even though we tried to center them, you can tell the front's not quite centered. So we'll have to drive it a little bit and get it all centered out for us. Before we wrap this up, let's go check it out on the backyard crawler course and see, man, let's just see how this thing does. That does so much better. So much better than it did before. Before, you would always feel the servos would lock out, or the servo saver would give out on you, and you'd end up having to wiggle around to actually get the steering to work. Not anymore. Stronger servo plus a solid servo horn means much better steering on this truck. I am very happy with that. So if you are looking to do some pretty cheap basic upgrades on your Danchee RidgeRock, these 20 kg Zoskay servos might be about the best budget oriented thing you can do.